Hey everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus coming at you with another deck overview. This time for a long forgotten deck that's gotten a bit of a facelift with Phyrexia All Will Be One. That is Devoted Druid Combo. Now, Devoted Druid Combo is one of many infinite combo decks that have existed in the modern format. Those include such wonderful things as Malira, Kitchen Finks, Murderous Redcap, Viscera Seer combo. Those include Heliod Ballista combo. Those include currently Yawgmoth with Undying creatures and some type of outlet, like either Drell's Messenger being one of the sat creatures or Blood Artist. One of the ones in the middle is Devoted Druid combo. Now, the 2-card combo for this is Devoted Druid, which is an 0/2 creature. Gets -1/-1 counter. You can untap Devoted Druid. It's an 0/2 that taps for 1 green mana. And then when you pair this with the card Vizier of Remedies, if one or more -1/-1 counters and put on a creature you control, that winning -1/-1 counters -1 are put on it instead. So what this allows you to do is if you cast a Devoted Druid and untap with it, if you have this and Vizier in play, you can create infinite green mana. And from there, you can win with a ham sandwich. So how does this deck come together? You need to find your missing pieces. You play 4 copies of Eldamari's Call, and you also play some number of other tutors. Court of Calling, Finale of Devastation, Collected Company. They've ranged in different ways over the years. Finale of Devastation allows you to search for any card. Also happens to be a win con in and of itself once you get the infinite mana. The other way to win the deck once you have infinite mana is Walking Ballista, cast it for infinitely large, shoot your opponent in the face. Now, there are other ways to take advantage of things. You have Viridian Longbow. Whenever this creature deals 1 tap to deal 1 damage to any target, this allows you now to have an infinite damage combo with Devoted Druid tapping and untapping. Instead of tapping for mana, you're just shooting infinite damage. Similar thing with Luxor Giada's Gift. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. Equipped creature isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. How this works is obviously when you put a -1/-1 counter on it, instead you're putting a +1/+1 counter, so you're making infinite untaps, same thing as if you had a Vizier of Remedies in play. Ether Vial, this isn't traditionally a part of the deck, but does help you sometimes cheat on mana. Then you have the Protection Package, Giver of Runes, and Burnt and Forge Tender. And then you kind of have to have some type of backup way to win the game in case your opponent has some type of instruction effects or if they're playing a more grindy plan. Stoneforge Mystic with Batterskull, Caldera Complete kind of fit the bill. One of Skyclave Apparition as a way to kind of deal with problematic opponent permanents. Extraction Specialist and Postmortem Lunge are both ways to bring back the missing piece of the combo. Allow you to play a little bit more of a grinding game. Postmortem Lunge is a one-shot. This is how you can get haste out of the graveyard to kill your opponent. And that's pretty much how the deck was previous to Phyrexia All Will Be One. Now, there are some sideboard cards we could talk about. Gadak Teague, Protect Against Combo and Sweepers. Solitude as a tutor target. Sanctifier as protection from red decks. As well as good against things like Rakdos Midrange or Rakdos Scan. Path as removal spells. Orvar to buy you time against the Indomitable Creativity combo. Endurances for any type of graveyard nonsense. Veil of Summer is protected against counterspell and discard spells as well as black removal spells. Nature's Claim to blow stuff up along with Outland Liberator. These are all situational, so they're not as relevant to the deck itself. But you are a tutor deck, so do take advantage of that. Now, this is another version of the deck pre Phyrexia All Will Be One. You see a lot of the same cards, so I'm not going to cover the ones that we haven't already seen. Fauna Shaman is a slow way to tutor up the missing pieces. It's a lot better if you have some way to break things on the graveyard half of things, but this is a way to turn, discard a creature card, find your missing combo piece. Another card you'll see pop up now and again in these green combo-based decks over time has been Duskwatch Recruiter, where the front side allows you to search for creatures by paying 2 and a green, look at the top 3, reveal a creature card among them, and then when it flips over to the other side, make sure your creature is a little bit cheaper to cast. But, you know, a lot of the same things. You also happen to have a Lair of the Hydra, which can be an infinite managed sink to kill your opponent out of nowhere. But basically, all the same thing. Protecting the creatures, combo pieces, auxiliary win cons, tutors, ways to bring the stuff back. You get the general idea. A lot of the same things on the sideboard. A couple different ones to mention. Containment Priest. If a non-token creature went into the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it. Pretty much good against creativity and living end. Draenith Magistrate. Your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere but their hands. Shuts down any like Snapcaster or recast from the graveyard things, but this is primarily for Cascade decks, keeping them from casting from exile or from the top of the deck. Knight of Autumn, yet another utility creature to blow up artifacts and enchantments. And Sword of Fire and Ice as another equipment for Stoneforge Mystic. Now, the new addition to the deck, and the whole reason we're actually doing the deck tech right now as opposed to somewhere down the line, Tyvar Jubilant Brawler. Its stack text is, you may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste, meaning you no longer need to untap with Devoted Druid to combo. Very powerful effect. Might be what takes to put this deck back on the map. The rest of the thing, nothing too fancy. You know, you still have your Oldamari's Calls, your Finale of Devastations. So you still have your tutors, your combo pieces, ways to win the game, ways to protect it. You know, you have the infinite combo with Rodian Longbow, the infinite mana combo with Luxor Shiada's Gift. You also have your Stoneforge Mystics and your Kadar complete as a way to close things out. Tyvar, untap one creature, mill 3, then you may return a creature from your mana value 2 or less from your graveyard. This kind of ties it all together, allows you to bring your combo pieces back from the graveyard, allows your pieces to combo immediately. This really puts the deck possibly back on the map against a format full of removal spells. Sideboard, you know, once again, whole lot of the same stuff we've been seeing. You know, you have things like Gaddock Teague, you have Haywire Might as a way to blow things up. The advantage of Haywire Might, you're not as vulnerable to ETB effect or shutdown ETB effects. Something like what are the cards? Hushwing Griff and those kind of nonsense. Since this isn't a sack ability, not as powerful, but still gets the job done. It's fairly cheap to cast at 1 mana. March of Otherworldly Light deals with a lot of problematic permanents, things like I don't know that. Well, Grafdigger's Cage, I suppose, which could be a problem for Finale. Specifically, also deals with things like Rest in Peace, etc. Also might deal with your opponent's, you know, random copies of Portable Hole if they're playing something like that. But also helps deal with your opponent's creatures. Containment Priest, we've already seen. Forge Hunter to help protect your creatures against red removal spells. Path to Exile when you need to slow your opponent down with things like Murktide and such, or if they have something like Meddling Mage in their deck. Veil of Summer, protect the combo against discard, counter spells, black removal spells, etc. Grist, nice grindy card to have access to. Gaddock Teague really gives a lot of decks problems, especially sweepers out of blue-white control. Shuts down things like Leyline Binding. Can cause problems for decks like Karn, etc., etc. But that's generally what the deck does, and this would probably be close to what I would consider a standard version going forward for Devoted Druid. There is, however, one kind of off-the-wall one that I wanted to take a look at that took me a minute to wrap my head around exactly what the deck had going on. Alright, now this one's weird. So we still have a lot of the same things going on. We have Vizier, Devoted Druid combo. Okay, whatever. You know, nothing too fancy. We have no copies of Eldamari's Call and very limited copies of Court of Calling, no Finale of Devastation. So what is this deck trying to do differently? Well, the key is looking at some of the secondary pieces. Stitcher Supplier. Okay, so generally you're trying to do stuff with a graveyard. I kind of understand that, but not guaranteed to find your combo pieces. Fiend Artisan. Very similar to Fauna Shaman, Birthing Pod-ish mix. Sacrifice another creature, search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it on the battlefield, activate it as a sorcery. Okay. Pairs with Fauna Shaman, allows you to find your missing pieces. Cool. But still doesn't really not do anything too terribly fancy. Tyvar, allows you to play things out of your graveyard. Grist allows you to kind of play this kind of grindy game. But why is this deck trying to self-mill? Answer, the Daily Double. You have Necrotic Ooze. Now this is a card that's very cute. As long as Necrotic Ooze is on the battlefield, it has all activated abilities of all creatures in all graveyards. So it has your Devoted Druid activated abilities, it has your Fauna Shaman Feed Artisan abilities, etc. Now, the one thing it doesn't have is the active text of Vizier, because Vizier is a static ability, not a activated ability. However, there is this weird common from Shadowmoor, says, Morsel Herder enters the battlefield with 2 -1/-1 counters on it. Remove a -1/-1 counter for Morsel Herder, add 1 mana of any color. Okay. So, your Necrotic Ooze gets tap, make a mana, untap, put a -1/-1 counter, tap, make a mana, -1/-1 counter, remove a -1/-1 counter, get some mana. So now you have infinite mana of all colors, not just green. You have infinite green, and then alternatively infinite whatever mana. Okay, so close the game out with things like Walking Ballista. Kind of boring. You also have Kenrith the Returned King. What can this do? It can put infinite +1/+1 counters on creatures. Cool. Can gain infinite life if you have infinite mana. Cool. Target player draws a card. So you can draw your entire deck. Can force your opponent to draw their entire deck. And bring everything back from your own graveyard. So once you have this kind of weird Necrotic Ooze thing set up, or infinite mana and a white mana somewhere floating around, you can infinitely do whatever to your opponent, give one of your creatures infinite counters, smack them to death, etc. Tyvar, Grist kind of all hold it all together. I do think this deck is probably a little too cute. I think the other Devoted Druid deck is a little bit more focused, not weak to graveyard hate, etc. But it can certainly catch your opponent off guard if all they're expecting is having to deal with Devoted Druid combo. Then suddenly you have this Necrotic Ooze that just goes brrr. So, beyond that, sideboard, nothing terribly fancy. You got some discard spells to clear the way, some Prismatic Inks to deal with problematic permanents of your opponents, Scavenging Ooze for any type of graveyard shenanigans, Assassin's Trophy deals with whatever Prismatic Ending can't usually, Haywire Might and Outland Liberator blow up the key things, blow up things like Amulet, Hammers, Ley Lines, etc. So, exciting deck. I'm glad to kind of see it back on the map. Whether it can still withstand the blistering amount of creature removal in the format, Solitude, Unholy Heat, Lightning Bolt, Fatal Push, Path to Exile, you name it. Whole bunch of removal that doesn't even see play anymore, like Abrupt Decay, Terminate. Whether it's good enough to fight through all that, it remains to be seen, but it is nice to see the deck back on the map, and it is one of the 4 or 5 infinite combo decks. You still have Heliod Ballista combo. You still have the old Malira combo, which was more with Pod and stuff. You don't see that as much. This kind of replaced that. Then Heliod replaced this. Then Yawgmoth kind of replaced all of them. So it's fun to see the old decks breathe new life with new cards. So whether the deck has staying power or not, time will tell. But that is my deck overview for Devoted Druid combo in the Modern.